Hi, I'm Ray and welcome to Ray's Garage. Today I'd like to talk about installing LED turn signals into the Honda XR650L. Now, it's a pretty popular thing to do. Nobody likes the original lights that are on the bike. They're so outdated, they're big, they're bulky, they're ugly. I chose to put mini stalkers on mine, LED, clear. It's 1/3 the size of the stock bulb. It looks neat and trim, and of course they're brighter. Installation of these mini stalkers is pretty cut and dry. You're basically just removing the old ones, pulling out the wires, taking the stock wires out of the female bullet connectors underneath this rubber boot, and making note of which side is which. Of course, on the left-hand side of the bike, that would be the clutch side, you basically have a green and an orange wire. On the throttle side, you have a light blue and a green wire. Both of the green wires are grounds. They both come into this boot and they feed into a female double connector bullet type fitting. You could tell because if you slip this boot back maybe a couple inches, it'll expose all the different connectors in there, and it's so obvious. It's the only one that's green, it's the only one that has a double female connector, and it's the only one that has two green wires going into it. You're simply going to pull them out. You're going to bring your mini stalker wiring up to this boot, and if you notice, there's a black and a yellow wire. On most electronics, the colored wire is the hot wire and the black wire is the ground. In this case, you would plug the black wire into the double female bullet connector inside this boot, and you'll connect the hot wire, of course, to the orange single female bullet connector that you'll find inside the boot. You'll do the same on the other side, plugging your ground into the same connector that the other side is connected to, because it's a double female bullet connector. And somewhere in here you'll also find a single orange wire. A single light blue wire. That is for the throttle side or the right side of the motorcycle. You're just going to disconnect the stock wire from that, and you're going to slip your yellow wire for the right side into the blue female bullet connector. And there you have it. You're done in the front. In the back, it's basically the same thing. You're getting rid of the old ones. You're going to cut the existing stock wire about 3 inches in. Okay, pull that back. You're going to bring in your new mini stalk. You're going to bring in your new wire. It already has the male bullet connectors on it. And on the stock wiring harness, you're going to find the green and the blue wire for the right side of the bike. You're just going to crimp on some female bullet connectors on that so that you can plug your new stalks right in. It'll be plug and play just like the OEM ones. And don't forget to use or install these shrink tubes. Now this one is so far down, but when I'm all done, I'm gonna pull these shrink tubes up close, add some heat to it, and protect the exposed wires. What you'll be left with is your bullet connectors. If you can find a shrink tube that's big enough to accept these bullet connectors, throw one of them on top too, just for added protection. Now naturally, after you do that, you're going to be left over with a little extra wire. That I don't care about. I'd rather have too much wire than to cut them too short. I just figure when I'm all done this project, I'm just going to stuff these wires back in. I'll probably tie them up and close them with a zip tie, and I'll be all set. Please excuse me if I get these sides mixed up. I was telling you about the light blue and the green. That is for the right side of the bike. On the left side of the bike, your colors are orange and green, just like the front turn signals, exact same setup. Again, you're going to put on these female bullet connectors and plug your new mini stalks right into the female connectors, and hopefully you'll do what I did and put these shrink tubes on before you do the connection, so that when it's all done you could slide them up and over your wiring, so that you'll have no colored wire exposed. And another good idea, if you can find a shrink tube big enough, is to put a really big one back here, so when you're all done you could slip that over the top of these two black ones and cover your bullet connectors. That way there's no chance that water or rain can come in, corrode it or whatever. It'll help hold them together too, so that jarring over bumps and rocks won't disconnect your fittings here. But like I said, installing the blinkers is easy peasy. Anybody could do it. It's pretty cut and dry, no mistakes about it. Installing the flasher, of course, is very easy as well. As you can see, this is the metal bracket underneath the headlight mask. On that metal bracket is a rubber sleeve that's connected to the flasher. And basically you're going to remove the OEM flasher for incandescent bulbs, and you're going to put an LED flasher in. Just make sure that you buy the kind that is two-pronged. It's kind of L-shaped. Okay, if I could show you underneath, it's pretty cut and dry. There's no way that you can mess these up. A lot of people say that there are certain kinds of relays and all. Basically, you're looking for a 12.8 volt LED flasher relay. They're all the same. It's simply just the switch that goes off as soon as power hits it, and then it goes back on again. It's a relay. My particular relay has a dial on the bottom side of it that you can adjust the flash rate of your blinkers. Turned in fully clockwise, they blink fast. If you back it off fully counterclockwise, they blink a lot slower. So naturally, I have my settings somewhere in the middle so they flash normally. Now that you have your blinkers installed, wired correctly, and you have the new flasher in place, you're a good 50 to 60% home. That job might take 40 minutes. It's very easy, and it can be accomplished by even the most novice of electricians, mechanics, or whatever. You don't really have to be a motorcycle guru or mechanic to figure out how simply these things just plug in. The hard part is getting to the incandescent bulb in the instrument cluster. Okay? There's a turn signal flasher in there, as you know, and it is an incandescent bulb. This incandescent bulb draws different milliamps from the bike, pulls it through the relay, and it gets confused with the LED amperage. And for some reason or another, when you combine the incandescent with the LED, it screws up the flasher. It does all kinds of weird things. Maybe you turn on your flasher, it'll only light on one side and stay solid, it won't blink. Flip it to the other side and the lights might light up for a split second and then go out. All kinds of things have happened. I tried putting in the original flasher just as an experiment to see what happens, and you plug the original flasher back in, signal left with your turn signal switch, and all four lights go on and remain lit. It just doesn't work. So after you get your signals wired, you get your new flasher, and you got to tackle this job. Now, other people are saying online that you could simply buy an LED bulb and replace the incandescent bulb that's in there, but let me tell you something. That's no easy task. Trying to find an LED bulb that's small enough to fit into the rubber grommet that fits into this instrument cluster perfectly. I mean, you'd be looking high and low before you found anything that would even match. Other people are saying just pull the bulb out and completely eliminate it. Well, there's a problem with that. For one thing, you're never going to know if you forgot to turn your turn signals off because you won't have a blinking indicator on your instrument cluster. The other thing is when you remove the bulb, you're actually breaking the circuit. There's no more filament left through the bulb for the current to travel. Therefore, it's like putting a switch in and leaving it in the off position or in the open position. It doesn't do anything to just remove the bulb and leave it out. Others might argue with me, but believe me, I monkeyed with this for long enough to know that there's only one real fix, and that's to install diodes. Now, there's a diode kit that you can buy from Amazon. It's very simple to find. All you have to do is search Honda XR650L diode kit or 650L turn signal diode. The first thing that came up was the one that I bought. It's simply a small pigtail, 2 red wires going into a diode, and coming out of the diode is a single dark blue wire. With that kit comes a length of maybe 8 or 10 inches of black wire to use as a ground. Okay, so now we know that the diode is the solution. That enables you to keep the incandescent bulb inside the instrument cluster, and it'll reduce it to the size, more or less, milliamperes as an LED bulb, and it will allow that light to flash like it should normally. The trick is trying to figure out how to wire it. A lot of people, again, have made videos on how to put these in, but nobody elaborates on exactly how to hook up this diode to your incandescent bulb in your instrument cluster. So what I did was I drew a schematic, and I'm going to take a long screenshot of it, or I'm going to film it for a while so that you can do a screenshot and save that picture to use as a reference guide for when you install your LEDs. One of the most difficult parts is actually getting to this incandescent bulb that's in your instrument cluster. As you can see above my fingers, there's an orange and a light blue wire. Okay, the same wires that are the hot side of both turn signals. They're both going up to this bulb. Now what I did was I took this plastic cover off. In order to do that, you have to take the bolts out of the bottom. There's one bolt there that are very hard to get to. You go to lift this thing up, and of course your speedometer cable's still on, so you got to unscrew the speedometer cable and carefully pull this thing apart. Once you get this off, then you got to take the bottom plate off of this box, which will allow you to remove the bulb without harming anything. It wasn't until after I did this long procedure that I realized that I probably didn't have to take this off, probably didn't have to rip everything apart. I could have just stuck my hand in here, pulled the orange and blue wire together, and firmly but carefully wiggled the 2 wires until the bulb popped out of its housing. It's simply a rubber grommet with the light bulb in it. If you could do that, well, then you could pull it out far enough to work on it. But then again, you still have to deal with the wire that goes into the wiring harness, and it could get pretty messy trying to do it without taking this piece off. So you can expect this to take about an hour to take apart, wire, and put back together. It's a pain in the ass, but it's well worth it. Because when you're done wiring your bike the way I am showing you how to wire it, not only are your incandescent light bulb in your instrument cluster, it's going to work and blink at a normal rate just like your LED flashers. But everything's going to be like it was stock, except for now you're going to have smaller, brighter turn signals that look a lot sharper on your bike. You're not going to sacrifice the use of this indicator lamp up here, which is very important to me because I'm one of those guys that always forgets to turn my turn signals off. I look in my mirror, my buddies are going like this, telling me to shut my light. Well, basically, all you have to do is look down and you see this thing blinking right here, and you know you left your indicator lights on. Without that bulb being in there, I don't know how people can stand it or how they can ride, but to me, it's not the same as the bike when it was stock, and that's what I prefer. Again, I'm going to take you over to the diagram of how to wire the diodes to this existing incandescent bulb so that everything will work the way it was supposed to work. Okay, here we have the diagram that I drew up for your reference. Basically, this is the bulb that's in the instrument cluster. Okay, that's your indicator bulb. From that is your orange and blue wire, which corresponds to the same wiring on the right and left side turn signals. Okay, that comes out, and forget about this, it goes right into the wiring harness. And what you have to do is you have to pull this bulb out of its socket or remove it somehow, and about 3 inches down, cut both wires right in half. Okay, then you're left with your bulb by itself, and you're left with 2 wires hanging out of your wiring harness. And basically all you have to do is get your diode kit and splice it into these wires, and when you're done, you ground it. So what I did from the wiring harness is I connected this red wire to the light blue, this red wire to the orange. There's no polarity there. These wires are both the same color. It doesn't matter. I like to use the method where you just braid them together like that. Of course, I've got a shrink tube on here, so when I'm all done braiding and soldering, I'll slip that tube over the connection and put some heat to it and shrink it, and it basically becomes one wire. Again, to prevent the wire from corroding, falling apart, or just failing on you. That's very important. So back to the diode kit. You got 2 red leads coming from this kit. You're going to attach one to the orange side of the wiring harness. You're going to touch the other side to the blue or light blue side of the wiring harness wire that you just exposed as a result of taking out this bulb. In the middle is a diode. Okay, that's the magic. And from that diode, there's only one wire, and that is a dark blue wire that you would come out and connect to your orange wire or the blue, but I prefer to use the orange because the colored wire to me was easier to remember. It's the hot wire, whatever. Now you'd make that connection, of course, using the braid and solder and shrink tube method, and then you'd go over to the other side of your bulb and you go to the light blue wire, and to that you'll attach the provided 8-inch long black wire that comes with the kit. Of course, braid it, solder it, and cover it with shrink wrap. Now everything goes back together. You might want to put some electrical tape on there to finish it up, make it look tighter. Plug your bulb back into the instrument cluster for the indicator lamp and put everything back together. You're going to let this black wire dangle and somehow bring it down here like I did. If you could see this, this is the black wire or the ground from the diode. Okay, this has to be grounded somewhere. Unfortunately, there's a lot of aluminum and even this black metal bracket that the light bulb, it somehow has rubber grommets on it, and it's hard to ground to. You don't want to stick the ground under one of your fork triple clamp pinches. You don't want to attach it anywhere up high or behind one of these screws. This is also a pinch bolt for the upper triple clamp. You just don't want to stick a wire under there. It looks half-assed, it looks cheesy, and it's going to fail. So what I did was, on the horn bracket, I pre-drilled a very small, I'd say a 1/16 of an inch hole right through the metal of the bracket. I scuffed it up a little bit to get the paint off, and I put an eye loop and I soldered it onto the black wire, and found a self-tapping screw, put it through the eye loop of the connector, and just screwed it into this black bracket. That assures that you got a positive ground, because of course this bracket screws into this bottom triple clamp. It's all metal. It touches the fork tube, the grounded frame. Everything is all connected. So I think, in my opinion, the best place to put this diode ground is right here on the horn bracket. Going back to the instrument cluster and whether or not you should take it apart, disassemble it and all, that's really up to you, but I think I did it the right way, because it allowed me a closer look, easier access to the wiring harness where the leads go from the incandescent bulb in your indicator lamp right here. And when I was all done, it gave me an opportunity to double check all the wiring, tidy everything up, put zip ties on everything. Now it's less of a mess. And mine's a little bit different because I put an aftermarket fender on it, and of course the wiring harness came under the bottom triple clamp, and I had to reroute it to come above the top triple clamp. So I mean, you're seeing this little loop in here that really shouldn't be there. It's only like that because I couldn't figure out a way to keep it underneath the triple clamp and still mount this really cool, I guess it's called a polyflex fender. But anyway, I left the headlight mask off, as I thought it would be a good opportunity to point out a few things. And I'm also going to put in a USB port and mount it somewhere off to the side, maybe the top of the triple clamp, right behind the turn signal holder. I might zip tie it on right at the spot, so you know all you need is a short USB wire to reach your phone or accessory or something like that. But I bought the double waterproof one, and I'm going to wire it into one of these hot wires, probably the headlight, which is operated by the key. So in other words, it won't be constantly hot. It'll only work when the key is on. Okay, now for the grand finale. Of course, after you get everything connected, you're going to want to try and see if it works. So I got my ignition on and everything should be good. So I'm going to turn left. So put on a turn signal. It blinks nice at a good rate. And looky here. My indicator light up in the dash is working as usual. And remember, that's still the incandescent bulb, but because of the diode, it's able to operate normally, just like your bike did before you put on the LED turn signals. As you can see, it operates fine in the rear. Now we'll go to the other side. That's the rear. All the bulbs are lit in there, by the way. I've seen videos where only half the bulbs lit up because it wasn't wired correctly. And it's all because they didn't use that diode correctly. There's the front blinking. And of course, I'm very pleased, and even more pleased, that my indicator bulb is flashing as it should. Because as I said, I'm the guy that always leaves his turn signals on. Okay, let's turn that off. And we're going to go back to the diagram that I drew. I'm going to hold the camera on the diagram for a while so that it will enable you an opportunity to take a screenshot to take out to your garage with you and wire your bike exactly the way this is wired. As you can see up here, this is the Amazon description. It's for many different applications, but basically it did say Honda 650L on there. and that sold me right away. Again, it was $10.99, and all you're getting is this little pigtail with 2 red wires, a diode with a dark blue wire coming from it, and they give you a 8-inch piece of wire to use as your ground. It wasn't long enough for me. I happen to have another black wire, the same gauge, and I think I used maybe about 10 inches or so in order to come down from the instrument cluster down to the horn bracket where this was ultimately grounded. There again, this is the light. After you pull it out of the instrument cluster, this is your wiring harness. You're basically cutting those 2 wires and you're putting the pigtail in, one to the orange, one to the blue. There's no polarity there. They're all the same color. It doesn't matter. There's no way that you could figure out which side goes to what. They're both red wires, so it doesn't matter. You just connect them. Make sure you solder all your joints and make sure you use shrink tube in order to protect those connections. Pretty much cut and dry. I don't know if you can get this kit anywhere but Amazon. If you don't have an Amazon account, I'm sure you could do the same search criteria on eBay and find a relatively similar priced item. I like Amazon because I order it on Tuesday night and it's there by Thursday morning at my house. So basically 1 day of delivery time. And I'll go back to this. I'm sure you guys all know, but I like to twist my wires together real neatly, okay? And then I'll solder these joints together with some flux infused solder. It's real easy. You're basically putting your soldering iron on this connection maybe for about 5 seconds, and all you do is touch it with your solder, and it will just fill this up right away. When you're all done, slip the shrink tube over your connection, put some heat to it, and it basically becomes 1 wire. So I'm glad you all got this. I hope I'm able to help somebody and set the record straight. Nobody else dared to mention how this diode should be wired. There was a million opinions about leaving that indicator bulb out of your dash, and trust me, it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. So if you want to tackle this job, I would set 2 hours aside, maybe longer. Make sure you have an LED flasher, you have your diode kit on hand, and you have a small soldering iron to make your connections. You don't have to use that. You could use crimp-on type bullet connectors, but they have a tendency to fail. The only place that I used them was on the back turn signals, because I wanted the ability to disconnect them as I saw fit. In case I fell over and broke one of these, I'll just be able to disconnect the bullet connectors and put a new stalker on. I hope this helps a lot of you guys. Thank you for watching Ray's Garage, and if you have any questions, don't forget to leave them in the comments section, and thank you very much for your time. Good luck now.